Could Fallout's genetically engineered super predator, the Deathclaw, survive one of the most dangerous time periods in history, the Permian? The Deathclaw is a genetically engineered apex predator, created through secret pre-war military experiments meant to replace human soldiers in high-risk combat zones. Built from a genetic cocktail of multiple animal lineages, with the Jackson chameleon as the base, it was designed to be durable, brutally strong, highly intelligent, and capable of surviving in nearly any environment. In the aftermath of the Great War, Deathclaws escaped into the wild, rapidly spreading and establishing themselves as the dominant predators of the post-apocalyptic wasteland, capable of killing nearly anything they came across with a single swipe from their massive claws. If Deathclaws were dropped into the Karoo Basin of southern Gondwana, in what is now South Africa, they would find themselves in a harsh, semi-arid landscape dominated by seasonal rivers, prolonged droughts, and extreme temperature swings. Oxygen levels were lower than today, ecosystems were unstable, and food webs were tightly contested by powerful native predators like gorgonopsids and massive amphibians. To determine whether Deathclaws could survive here, we'll evaluate them across 4 key categories: habitat adaptability, dietary compatibility, competition and predation, and reproductive success. Each category will be rated out of 10, leading to a final survival score. And stick around after this, because we'll also explore 3 potential ways these super predators might evolve to better suit this prehistoric landscape, and we'll explore whether they could survive the greatest extinction event in history, the Great Dying, a time when roughly 90% of all life on Earth was wiped out. Also, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Deathclaws were engineered to survive in some of the most hostile environments imaginable. Within the Fallout world, they persist across radioactive deserts, frozen mountain ranges, dense forest, and ruined urban landscapes, displaying an unusually broad environmental tolerance for a large-bodied predator. Dropping Deathclaws into the Permian Karoo Basin would expose them to a wide range of habitats, but none that fall outside their demonstrated limits. The region was a patchwork of open floodplains, semi-arid scrublands, and shifting woodland corridors, shaped by intense droughts and sudden flooding events. While these were undoubtedly harsh environments, they are still easily within the Deathclaw's capability of surviving. Their tall bipedal build and powerful limbs would allow them to move efficiently across a wide variety of terrain, and warm temperatures and sun exposure would pose little issue for a creature that is well adapted to desert conditions, and their thick, armored hide would offer protection from abrasive dust, heat, and injuries associated with rough terrain. Even the Karoo's extreme seasonality would likely play to their strengths. Deathclaws have repeatedly demonstrated the ability to establish and maintain territories in environments with minimal cover, shifting resources, and high environmental turnover. Seasonal rivers would concentrate prey, open landscapes would reduce ambush competition, and their generalist nature would allow them to exploit nearly any viable habitat they encountered. However, there is one major challenge that environmental flexibility alone cannot overcome: oxygen availability. Unlike temperature, terrain, or radiation exposure, oxygen availability is a constraint that even this highly adaptable creature cannot simply ignore. During the Late Permian, atmospheric oxygen levels were significantly lower than today, placing large active animals at a serious physiological disadvantage, especially those built for power and sustained exertion. Deathclaws are massive, heavily muscled predators with a body plan optimized for burst of speed and close quarters combat. That kind of physiology is metabolically expensive. In a low oxygen atmosphere, their tissues would receive less oxygen per breath, reducing aerobic capacity and making prolonged activity far more taxing than it would be in their native environments. Even if their lungs are capable of filtering out toxins or radioactive particles, as their survival in nuclear wastelands suggest, filtration does not solve the problem of there simply not being as much oxygen. In practical terms, this would likely mean Deathclaws here would experience quicker fatigue, reduced stamina during hunts, and longer recovery times after exertion. Deathclaws might be forced to rely more heavily on ambush tactics, shorter chases, and nocturnal or crepuscular activity to avoid overheating and oxygen debt. That said, this challenge wouldn't necessarily be a death sentence. If Deathclaws persisted in the Karoo Basin across multiple generations, natural selection would strongly favor individuals with more efficient lungs, higher red blood cell counts, or slower, more energy-efficient hunting strategies. Over time, the species could plausibly adapt to these atmospheric conditions, but in the short term, oxygen availability would represent the single greatest physiological hurdle standing between Deathclaws and true dominance of the Permian ecosystem. With all of this in mind, the Deathclaw scores a habitat adaptability rating of 7 out of 10. Deathclaws are built as generalist hypercarnivores, large, powerful, and capable of exploiting almost any available source of meat. In the Fallout world, they survive in ecosystems where large prey is often scarce and fragmented, yet they still establish stable populations. Dropping them into the late Permian would place them in a far richer feeding landscape than the post-apocalyptic wasteland they hail from. Late Permian South Africa supported an abundance of large-bodied herbivores, particularly dicynodont therapsids, which form the backbone of terrestrial ecosystems. Massive plant eaters such as Alocephalodon, Dicynodon, and large-bodied Lystrosaurus species were common, alongside bulky pareiasaurs like pareiasaurs that could reach lengths of up to 3 meters long and weigh up to 1,000 kilograms. These animals were slow-moving, heavily built, and were largely reliant on their size for defense. Standing 10 feet tall, Deathclaws would be an unstoppable force in the Permian. Their size, strength, and oversized claws would allow them to inflict catastrophic injuries. Even the largest Permian herbivores would struggle to withstand repeated slashing attacks. And even with the Deathclaw's oxygen inefficiency, most herbivores still wouldn't be able to outrun a Deathclaw. Compared to the Fallout Wasteland, where Deathclaws subsist on smaller, more spread out prey, the Karoo offers more frequent access to large, calorie-dense animals. And if this wasn't enough, Deathclaws are also pack hunters. Coordinated attacks would allow Deathclaws to even more effectively overwhelm prey larger than themselves. Additionally, Deathclaws' reptilian physiology works strongly in their favor. Like large modern reptiles like crocodilians, they likely possess a slow metabolism, allowing them to endure long periods without food. This trait would buffer them against seasonal droughts or temporary prey shortages common in Permian environments. In short, the Permian would be a buffet in comparison to their native Fallout ecosystems. Large prey is abundant and would stand little chance against a predator of this caliber, scoring the Deathclaws a dietary compatibility score of 10 out of 10. In the Karoo Basin, Deathclaws would encounter a range of predators, but few that could truly challenge them. Small gorgonopsians like Lycanops or large amphibians like Rhinosuchus would be easily dominated by a fully grown Deathclaw. They would tower over these lesser predators, with bipedal height giving them a clear field of vision, and with their massive talons and bone-crushing strength, these predators would be little more than snacks in comparison. But now we come to the apex predators of the Permian, the larger gorgonopsians. Most species grew between 2 to 3 meters long, but the largest, Inostrancevia africanus, could reach up to 3.5 meters in length and weigh up to 600 kilograms. These predators were terrifying in their own right, boasting 6-inch upper canines capable of piercing bone and powerful bites designed to take down the large herbivores of the time. In a one-on-one encounter, an adult Inostrancevia could absolutely put up a formidable fight and might occasionally even come out on top against a Deathclaw. However, the Deathclaw's incredibly tough hide, massive claws, and overbuilt forelimbs would give it a decisive edge more often than not. And this doesn't even factor in Deathclaw's pack hunting behavior. Coordinated attacks from multiple individuals would quickly overwhelm even the largest gorgonopsians. By contrast, there's no strong evidence to suggest that gorgonopsians hunted in packs. Without numbers, their apex predator status in the Karoo would be quickly taken over by the Deathclaws, whose combination of size, strength, and teamwork would make it a near unstoppable force, scoring Deathclaws a competition and predation rating of 9 out of 10. Deathclaws are not just apex predators, they are also extremely prolific. As oviparous creatures, females lay large hardy eggs, each weighing up to 12 pounds. These eggs are quite resilient with tough shells and long shelf lives, making them highly resistant to environmental stressors or accidental damage. And in the Karoo Basin, the absence of small specialized mammalian nest raiders would also work in their favor. With few predators small enough to threaten eggs, but large enough to bypass a full-grown Deathclaw guarding a nest, their young would face minimal predation in the earliest stages of life. Deathclaws carefully select sheltered, secluded nesting sites, often hidden under rocks, vegetation, or in natural caves. And females will even construct protective barriers using small rocks, twigs, or bones to fortify the nest. Once the eggs hatch, juveniles are immediately equipped for survival, with fully developed claws and the protection of the pack structure. Even though their horns and dorsal spikes don't develop until later, the young are defended vigorously by their parents and other pack members. Given their nesting behavior, parental care, and pack dynamics, Deathclaws in the Permian would likely establish stable, self-sustaining populations with minimal reproductive losses, scoring Deathclaws a reproductive success score of 10 out of 10. This scores Deathclaws a very high survive-adapt-evolve score of 9 out of 10. It should come as no surprise that a creature engineered to thrive in nearly any hostile environment and designed as an unstoppable killing machine dominates this prehistoric landscape. Deathclaws can easily survive in diverse habitats, no herbivores here stand a chance, and they outmatch nearly every predator they encounter. Their pack behavior, resilience, and lethal arsenal make them a serious force to be reckoned with. If it wasn't for the lower oxygen levels in the Permian holding them back, Deathclaws would easily claim the highest Survive Adapt Evolve score so far in the series. In the predator-rich landscapes of the Late Permian Karoo Basin, survival was a relentless game of stealth, power, and cunning. Towering dicynodonts lumbered across open floodplains, and armored pareiasaurs grazed near seasonal rivers. In this dynamic and harsh environment, Deathclaw packs constantly adapted to exploit every available ecological niche. Over generations, one lineage of Deathclaw responded to these pressures, combining stealth, precision, and raw physical power into a single lethal form. The result is the Veilclaw, or Cryptocanthus occultus. Stemming from their Jackson's chameleon ancestry, Veilclaws evolved a highly advanced ability to change the coloration and patterning of their skin. As with modern chameleons, this ability is still used for interspecific communication, signaling emotions within the pack, but it has also been taken a step further. Veilclaws actively employ full-body camouflage to blend into the foliage, allowing entire packs to approach prey unnoticed before an ambush. Physically, Veilclaws are smaller than their Fallout ancestors, standing around 5 to 6 feet tall, but their build emphasizes ambush efficiency rather than brute force. Their forelimbs are massively reinforced, tipped with bone-crushing claws designed to immobilize and restrain prey. A third pronounced horn emerges atop the snout, another echo of their chameleon heritage, used to gore or stun prey during the opening moments of a coordinated attack. Their hunched torsos, thick muscular necks, and widened jaws support devastating bite forces while maintaining a low stealthy profile close to the ground. Behaviorally, Veilclaws are master ambushers, operating in small, highly coordinated packs. They move slowly and deliberately, freezing at the slightest sign of disturbance until an unwary herbivore wanders within striking distance. Then, in a choreographed burst, the pack strikes. Horns gore, jaws clamp, and forelimbs grapple prey into submission. Even the largest dicynodonts or pareiasaurs are not safe from these coordinated ambushes. Veilclaws retain the highly effective reproductive strategy of their Deathclaw ancestors, combining durable eggs with strong parental investment and pack-based defense. Nests are placed in shaded concealed locations where adults use their advanced color-changing skin to visually mask both themselves and the nest site. Pack members actively guard nesting areas, drastically reducing the risk of egg predation. Hatchlings are born able to camouflage from the beginning and use this to hide from predators if their pack isn't around. Together, these traits make the Veilclaw not just a successful predator, but a lineage optimized for long-term survival, one capable of dominating the Karoo through stealth, coordination, and generational stability. In the Karoo Basin, survival wasn't just about brute strength. It also favored intelligence, vigilance, and cooperation. While massive dicynodonts and armored pareiasaurs represent the most obvious prey for larger predators, smaller reptiles, amphibians, and large insects scurried, burrowed, and foraged in the shadows, providing ample opportunity for nimble, opportunistic hunters. One lineage of Deathclaw dramatically shifted to fill this niche, giving rise to a small, highly social predator perfectly adapted to exploiting the abundant insect and reptile prey. The result is the Sandclaw, or Microcanthus fossor. Sandclaws are roughly the size of a modern badger, compact and low-slung, measuring around 1 foot tall at the shoulder. Their bodies are now built for navigating undergrowth and burrowing rather than raw power, with flattened, reinforced forelimbs tipped with sharp claws designed for digging and grasping prey. And their horns have become streamlined and swept back to avoid interference with soil, while large eyes grant exceptional vision for spotting predators. Their jaws are smaller than their larger cousins, but equipped with conical canines, perfect for dispatching large insects and small reptiles. Behaviorally, Sandclaws are highly social, living in communal burrows and hunting cooperatively. They are facultative bipeds, walking on all fours when traveling or digging, but raising onto their hind legs to pin and grapple prey with their dexterous thumbed forelimbs. Packs rely on teamwork and coordinated ambushes, using burrow networks and low vegetation for concealment. Sentinels stand watch at burrow entrances, warning the group of approaching threats. By scaling down and specializing for burrowed cooperative hunting, Sandclaws exploit a niche largely untouched by larger predators, thriving in a world dominated by large herbivores and mid-sized carnivores alike. In the Karoo Basin, speed and precision could be just as lethal as brute strength. One lineage of Deathclaw took a radically different evolutionary path, favoring swiftness, solitary hunting, and devastating jaws. The result is the Razerclaw, or Veilclaw ferox. Slightly larger than its Fallout ancestors, Razerclaws boast a more theropod-like body plan. Long, powerful legs allow them to chase down nearly any prey in the Karoo with relentless speed. Their horns are swept back, streamlining their heads and optimizing aerodynamics during the chase, while their jaws have widened and deepened, capable of delivering bone-crushing bites. Their forelimbs, though slimmer than their ancestors, retain remarkable strength and end in large hooked claws designed for stabbing and grappling prey. Every aspect of the Razerclaw's anatomy prioritizes speed, lethal force, and the ability to bring down animals larger than themselves. Behaviorally, Razerclaws are solitary hunters until they reach sexual maturity and find a mate. Breeding pairs form strong lifelong bonds. These bonded pairs cooperate during hunts, using speed and coordination to execute pincer maneuvers that few Permian animals could escape. Nesting sites are carefully selected in secluded areas, often along elevated ground near floodplains, where eggs are laid in small clutches and aggressively defended, with the parents taking turns guarding the nest while the other hunts. Juveniles receive prolonged parental care learning hunting techniques. Once large and skilled enough to hunt independently, young Razerclaws are driven out to prevent territorial competition, dispersing across the Karoo to establish new breeding pairs and maintain genetic diversity. In the unstable ecosystems of the Late Permian, Razerclaws thrive not through numbers, but through speed, coordination, and lethal efficiency. The Velocicanthus ferox stands as one of the most specialized pursuit predators the Karoo would ever see. And now, as a special segment, I will go over whether or not I think the Deathclaw and each of its descendant lineages have what it takes to survive the Great Dying, scoring each out of 10 based on what I think their chances are. The end Permian mass extinction, roughly 252 million years ago, is considered the most catastrophic extinction event in Earth's history. Most likely triggered by massive volcanic eruptions in the Siberian traps, the release of enormous amounts of carbon dioxide and methane caused a super greenhouse effect. Global temperatures skyrocketed, oceans became acidified, and oxygen levels plummeted. The combined effect was catastrophic. Over 90% of marine species and roughly 70% of terrestrial vertebrate species went extinct. Dominant herbivores like dicynodonts, pareiasaurs, and most synapsid predators disappeared. In the oceans, trilobites vanished forever, and almost all large reef-building organisms were wiped out. Some lineages, however, did survive, particularly those that were small, highly adaptable, or capable of tolerating extreme conditions. Burrowing animals, particularly resilient reptiles, certain insects, and freshwater fish managed to endure. Notably, Lystrosaurus, a small hardy dicynodont, emerged from this crisis to dominate terrestrial ecosystems in the Triassic. So, how would Deathclaws and their relatives fare under these conditions? First up, the Deathclaw. Even without the specialized evolutionary adaptations seen in its descendants, Deathclaws are built for extreme resilience. Their ability to endure toxic environments, prolonged starvation, and severe physiological stress works strongly in their favor during a mass extinction. However, their large body size becomes a serious liability as global temperatures rise, oxygen levels drop, and most critically, the terrestrial food web collapses. Despite being capable of surviving a nuclear post-apocalyptic wasteland, the Great Dying without a doubt would be far harder for them to endure, scoring the Deathclaw a 3 out of 10 for its chances to survive the Great Dying to the Triassic. But now what about the Veilclaws? Veilclaws take the Deathclaw's resilience and combine it with smaller size and stealth. Their camouflage would potentially allow them to reduce heat stress, and their smaller size would make them slightly less vulnerable to the changing atmosphere. The reliance on group hunting, however, would potentially need to be abandoned, as food became more scarce. But overall, Veilclaws would likely have a better chance of surviving the extinction than their larger ancestors, though being large predators, their chances still wouldn't be great, scoring the Veilclaw a 4 out of 10 for its chances to survive the Great Dying. The Sandclaws are definitely the most promising candidates for surviving the Great Dying. Their much smaller size, burrowing lifestyle, and hunting of insects and small reptiles mirrors the traits of real-world Permian survivors. By remaining underground during extreme heat, conserving energy, and feeding on small prey, the species could likely ride out the thousands of years of harsh conditions. Sandclaw's low metabolic needs and inherited resilience of the Deathclaws give them a much higher chance of surviving this prolonged crisis, scoring the Sandclaw an 8 out of 10 for its chances to survive the Great Dying. Razerclaws, specialized for speed and hunting large prey, would face the greatest challenges. Their large size, high metabolic demands, and reliance on abundant vertebrate prey make them extremely vulnerable when herbivore populations collapse. While their physical adaptations make them lethal hunters under normal conditions, they are poorly suited to endure the extreme, resource-limited environment of the super greenhouse, scoring the Razerclaw a 1 out of 10 for its chances to survive the Great Dying. In conclusion, Deathclaws in all of their forms demonstrate incredible resilience, but survival under the Great Dying would strongly favor smaller, more adaptable species. While the original Deathclaw and Veilclaw could maybe cling to existence if they got very lucky, the Sandclaw would be the best bet for long-term survival. And Razerclaws, despite their fearsome hunting abilities, would realistically have almost no chance of surviving the thousands of years of food scarcity. Thanks for watching this episode of Survive, Adapt, Evolve. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss any future content. And if you want to further support the channel, consider becoming a YouTube member today. Not only will you help support me in making the best quality content I can, but you will gain sneak peeks of upcoming videos, early access to new releases, and custom emojis of some of your favorite creatures from the channel. Until next time, stay curious, and I'll see you all in the next video.